Hi there. In this video, I am going to go through some tips and tricks for picking up stitches. There are many instances where you need to pick up stitches. In this case, with this design, I asked to pick up stitches on the border to knit the lace border. In the sunflower design, we start with two sides right here, and then I ask the knitters to pick up stitches along the side so the center portion of the scarf is knit. Similarly, in my recent design, which is tulips, we have the same construction as with sunflower, where we have two identical wings, or rather two symmetrical wings, knit, and then stitches are picked up along the edge of these wings and we knit the center section. I'm going to use this little swatch that I worked in advance to show you some of these tips and tricks. And you'll notice here, even though I have a garter fabric, you'll notice my edge does not have any bumps. It's pretty smooth and it looks like a stitch. So you'll notice that every other section here looks like a stitch, and if you look within these little stitches or stitch-like, you'll notice there are a couple of floats. Each one of those little legs is a place where I can pick up stitches. To get this type of edge, you need to work the first stitch of every row. When you are working a garter fabric like this, and where you are knitting every row, when you turn around and you're going to knit the wrong side row, you need to purl the first stitch. Now, if you are working a garter fabric and you are purling every row, then when you're working your wrong side row, you need to knit that first stitch. And when you do that, you get this nice consistent edge where you have a lot of places to pick up stitches. Second thing is when I need to pick up stitches and I'm asked to pick up 30 or 20 or however many stitches I'm asked to pick up from a particular span of fabric. First thing is I like to pre-count the places from where I need to pick up stitches, and I put markers. In this case, I've counted garter ridges. So I started counting from here, and I counted 10 garter ridges, and I put a marker. I then counted another 10, put a marker, and I came to this point in here. And if I'm asked, let's say, to pick up 15 stitches if I am asked to pick up, say, 30 stitches across the board, I know that I would need to pick up 15 between this marker and this marker, and 15 between this marker and this marker. Thirdly, most of you are used to picking up stitches and insert your needle under two legs like this, or under two legs like this, and that seems to be a common way of picking up stitches. That's perfectly fine. However, when I am picking up stitches for scarves or shawls, I like to pick up stitches only under one leg, because that actually forms a very nice and even and thin joint. Show you an example in here. This is a miniature version of the sunflower design, and I picked up stitches along this edge. So I flip to the wrong side, and you'll notice that this joint here where I picked up stitches is pretty thin, and it's very well blended with the fabric. Had I picked up stitches through two legs, you will actually notice a noticeable row of chains along this edge, and it will be popping up to the top. The last tip before I actually start picking up stitches here is that though I like picking up stitches through one leg only, when I start picking up stitches, I intentionally go under two legs. And the reason being is that there's a lot of tension on this first stitch. To relieve that tension, I intentionally pick up stitches under two legs. And then, as I proceed with picking up stitches, I only pick up under one leg. The same thing applies to the last place where I need to pick up stitches. If this is the last location I need to pick up stitches, then I intentionally pick up under two legs instead of just one. It's for the same reason, because this leg will have more tension on it than, say, a leg in the middle in here. So I just want to make sure that I don't overstretch it. I don't put too much tension on it. So now the fun part begins, and I need to pick up stitches. In this demonstration, I'm only going to pick up one stitch per garter ridge. And because I am going to do that, you'll notice that I have an option. I can pick up this stitch in here, through this leg in here, or through here, or I can pick up the stitch through this leg. As long as I am consistent, it doesn't matter which one you choose to do, or which one I choose to do. So I will start by, as I mentioned before, I'm going to start right past this marker, and my first stitch to pick up is going to go under two legs. Just like that. And then I'm going, since I picked that little bump, or that stitch or that leg that pops to the front, my next one, I'm going to be consistent, and I'm going to go under that one leg only, since it's in the second one, and I'm going to pick up the next stitch, and then the third leg, and pick up that third stitch, and so on. So it's gonna get to the point where I have my marker. What I like to do personally is, after I pick up that predetermined number of stitches, in this case it's 10 stitches between markers, I like to take this stitch marker and put it on the needle. And the reason I do this is because then I can I don't have to work very hard at counting. So I have 10 stitches in here, put a marker, then I know I need to pick up 10 stitches. So it's easy for me to count and make sure that I picked up the right number of stitches between markers. And I only have to count one section at a time. Once I confirm this section, then I have peace of mind that I did it correctly. Then all I have to do is count the following section. This is important if you have a long edge, like for example, if you're working one of my designs like sunflowers or tulips, or for that matter, that first one I showed you, which is sunrise. All of those have long edges where you need to pick up a large number of stitches. So marking your border or your edge and putting markers and counting stitches after each marker makes life very simple. So here I've picked up 9 stitches, and I'm going to pick up that last stitch. That's the last place where I need to pick up a stitch. As I did with the first stitch I picked up, I go under both legs and pick up those stitches. Oh, sorry, I split my yarn in here, and I pick up that stitch. So here I picked up stitches evenly, 10 here, 10 here. I put my marker so it's easy for me to count, and I went through under 2 legs at the beginning, under 2 legs at the end, but under 1 leg on every other one I picked up. The last tip I want to show in here is that you'll notice in this sample I have a different slope for this piece of fabric, one gentle slope and one steeper slope. Sometimes I am asked to pick up a stitches more frequently, and it is the case for some of my designs where I have a steep slope and I need the fabric to flare around. I intentionally ask the knitters to pick up a large number of stitches when I have fabric like this. And most often than not, almost always actually, I ask to pick up about 3 stitches every 2 garter ridges. The good news is, if you look in here very closely, this is 1 garter ridge, this is another, and I have 4 locations to pick up stitches from. So what I usually do is I go ahead and pick up my first stitch, and then instead of just jumping over to the next bump in here, I go under that float for my next stitch, and then I pick up under that bump. And so here I have 2 garter ridges and I picked up 3 stitches. Then next I'm going to skip this float in here, and I'm going to pick up 3 stitches across the next 2 garter ridges. So again, I follow the same pattern. I pick up under that bump, so to speak, under that float in the middle bit of the bumps, the second one, the third one under that bump. So here I've got six stitches that I picked up from 4 garter ridges, and I continue my pattern of picking up stitches. You can see here on the needle that pattern, so you'll see that there are 3 stitches close together and a bit of a space, another 3 stitches close together and space, and so on. That's exactly what we need in this case. And then when you work the pattern, I have an example in here on this edge. When you work the next row, as an example, it's almost impossible to actually tell that you actually have a space between these picked up stitches. It evens out when you work, and it evens out even more when the fabric is blocked.